Welcome to Seeking Numina, the Sacred Places podcast. I'm your host, Elise Wells, and today I'm joined by a native Maltese witch, Steph Rose. Steph Rose Wild is a folk witch, candle maker, and the creator of Lunar and Wild, a nature-rooted spiritual brand born from her own journey of reconnection during the 2020 lockdowns. Through herbalism, foraging, moon-based living, and handcrafted ritual candles made with sustainable, plant-powered ingredients, Steph helps others rediscover the magic woven through everyday life. In 2023, she expanded her vision by founding the Lunar and Wild Coven, a global community of women exploring spirituality, sisterhood, and seasonal ritual together. You can find her on Instagram at Steph Rose Wild and lunarandwild.com. Welcome to Seeking Numina. I'm your host, Elise Wells, and I invite you to connect with the sacred wild within and around you through Numina, or sacred sites, around the world and the wisdom they hold. Together, let's remember the old ways, build relationships with land spirits, and dare to reach out to the fairies. The sacred wild is inviting you to dance in the moonlight. Will you answer their call? Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, it's so nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
This was very serendipitous because I think we connected just generally, on Instagram. And then I don't remember if I brought it up or I don't know how it started, but I learned that you are from Malta. And Malta
Yeah.
is my favorite place that's not Greece in the world for spiritual connection. And actually, my all-time favorite spiritual site in the world, including Greece, including Delphi. People are like, you including Delphi in that? Yes, including Delphi. My favorite sacred place, the place I've had the deepest connection, is the Hypogeum in Malta.
Wow.
So I want to get into this with for the audience because a lot of people are completely unfamiliar with Malta, which is
I know,
wild to
yeah.
me because it's the root of goddess practice. It is over 8,000 years older than the oldest artifacts we have in Greece.
Yeah, it's crazy actually. I think it's because it's the tiniest island ever. You can almost blink and miss it. So it's like it's a tiny island right in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, and it's, yeah, a little dot underneath Sicily. And I feel like it kind of sits in the middle of a crossroads, basically, the crossroads of the Mediterranean. So I feel like Malta has quite a liminal energy. But as you said, it has some of the oldest temples in the world that predate the Egyptian pyramids. And it's actually crazy how many sacred sites there are on the island, considering it's so small. But yeah, it means a lot to me. I've grown up going there every year since I was born, and it just has such an amazing spiritual energy. It just feels so grounding, and it just feels like a very deep, earthy energy there. And whenever I get off the plane, I just feel like a big wave of peace when I arrive. I don't know if you feel the same.
hmm it is that liminal feeling as well. It's peace and it's almost like being in the eye of a storm, I imagine, that calm stillness of connection that makes deep connection possible in Malta. What's interesting to me too about the Maltese sacred sites is they're really nothing like anything you would see in any other place. I think the only place, and I've not visited personally, but the only place I've seen pictures of that looks maybe comparable is Göbekli Tepe, and that's also not quite the same. So something I noticed about Maltese temples, for those who are like, what do you mean? So like in Greece, the pyramids, they're all more angular. In Malta,
Mm,
they're all round.
very
And
womb-like.
exactly, they're more connected to the divine feminine. Could you speak to that, to the goddess, I'll use the official word, the goddess cults that we think existed in Malta during the Tarjan era?
Yeah, it's really interesting actually because I've read so many different stories about these ancient civilizations, and one of them which I found fascinating was actually in the book The Cosmic Mother, and it was saying that a lot of ancient priestesses used to go to the island to basically learn ritual and magic from all over the Mediterranean. They used to gather in Malta to learn
I have to write that book down before I forget.
Learn different rites and rituals and magic. So that was one thing I've read, which I was like, oh wow, that's incredible if that's true. But yeah, like you said, all of the temples are very round and very womb-like when you enter, especially with the Hypogeum when you go when you're going in to the Hypogeum, which those that don't know, it's where they used to bury their dead and do death rites there. When you go further in, it feels like you're going into the underworld as well. It's really a strange feeling, but yeah, it feels like you're crossing a threshold into this underworld. And there's a particular part of the Hypogeum which is called the Oracle Room, which resonates at I think it's 1110, 111 hertz. So that frequency was said to get you into a meditative divine connection with the divine. So yeah, kind of gone a bit off piece there, but it's hard to really explain in words the feeling of being at these sacred sites. But going back to what you did actually ask me about the goddess worship there, um, all of the figurine statues that were found there, all curvy women. I mean, I've got one right here, which is a very famous one called the Sleeping Lady, which was found actually in the Hypogeum. I think it was actually it was actually smaller in size than
Yeah,
this.
it's like stupid small. Like when I first
It's
saw it,
tiny,
we'll put the
yeah.
video up on the YouTube version of this podcast, so you can see my video of it in the museum. But it's literally, yeah, it's like a
Yeah,
pendant.
little baby. Um, but yeah, she was said to represent like dreaming and rest and regeneration, and a sort of the bridge to the underworld. So yeah, in every temple in Malta, it was it's quite clear that it was all about goddess worship.
And near the Hypogeum is the Tarsian Temple. I think it's just called the Tarsian Temple. But for those who don't know, the Tarsians, and that's spelled Tarxien, they were the people who we know built these spaces, but they didn't leave. Please correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but they didn't leave written record and they sort of just disappeared. We
Yes,
have a solid, I think, 1,200 years between their record and then clearly a different civilization coming to the island. Because if you look at it on a map, you'd see it is this crossroads between Africa, Europe, the Mediterranean. So different people came across it on their travels, and so I think most of what we know actually comes from visitors, like the Phoenicians, later the Greeks, later the Romans. So we're piecing it together essentially only from archaeology, what we can know about these Tarsians. But yes, we know they left behind, I think, only goddess statues. I don't think there were masculine ones. There were some phallic uh,
yes,
votive offerings, but the actual statues, there are some that were over 9 feet tall found at these
yeah.
Tarsian temples across the road from today's road, across the road from the Hypogeum.
Yeah, they were right. There were a few phallic symbols found, and it's quite clear that there were a lot of fertility rites happening. But this representation of a woman's body was quite clear that they found it powerful and um, as a kind of abundant force of creation. So it was really revered and worshipped to this ancient civilization who yes, like you said, completely vanished. But yeah, I just feel like we can learn so much from them, and it's such a shame that we don't have more information about them, only the what they left behind.
Yeah. I have a theory on the future of goddess work and the work we do, especially working with the land and working with the spirit realm. So over the past 2,000 years, we've really lost connection to, well, we've really lost respect for oral tradition. We feel like if it's not written down, if I can't cite somebody else's written downness, then anything I say is invalid. And we believe that so strongly that even in our spiritual work, we bring that attitude to it. And so I think like the work I'm doing now in Greece, I'm not really concerned with the Olympians. I'm not really concerned with what I consider more modern applications of who the gods were. And those are the ones we have written record of. But if we go further, if we look at the Mycenaean era and back, the land in Greece remembers that like yesterday. The time scale of land is so vast that 2,000 years is nothing. 3,000 years is nothing. Even 10,000 years is like breakfast compared to, how we think of time as humans. So the land remembers this. And when we visit places like Malta, the land will give us plenty of information, especially as priestesses or witches or visiting practitioners. It will give us so much, but it's uncomfortable to explain that to others because we can't quote unquote prove it. And so it becomes
Yeah.
this very personal thing that either we keep inside or we feel we can only share in very small spaces or with the right people. But I'm hoping that will shift. And I think podcasts are actually, I'm obsessed with podcasts. I've hosted 3 over the years. I host 2 now. I think the more people listen to podcasts and they feel more comfortable believing what they're hearing through that medium, it's going to continue to spread this deeper connection back to oral tradition, which I hope will be part of bringing Malta where it needs to be in the public mind. Not necessarily the mainstream public mind, but people who work with the goddess, whatever that means to them, I really need them to know Malta because it's this missing link for people.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to explain how spiritual it is, like how important it is to experience the land there. Like, yeah, you really just have to go.
I finally found a way to put into words one of the experiences I had in the Hypogeum. So, for those who follow me on Instagram, you might know I go to Malta every year in April for my birthday because it is just a place I can't put into words, and it's if I can't visit it, it fills my battery like to go, and so I have to go every year. And
I'm
and
the
I have a lot of
same.
friends. Yeah, it really is like I feel
Like a
shriveled
pool.
without.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yep. And then it like plumps you up and you feel like so like refreshed. It's unreal. And I feel that way about Greece when I tried to not go to Greece. I only in my life, the longest period I spent away from the Mediterranean was 18 months, and it was like horrible.
It's
Um,
amazing how like depleted that you become from not going to the Mediterranean. I feel like it's so like necessary for me. And a lot of people didn't understand that when I was growing up, that I just had to go there every year. And like,
yeah.
why don't you visit other places? I'm like, I don't want to. I
Yeah.
need my Mediterranean fix.
Exactly. I don't, and it's funny too because the ancients seem to know that. They call
Mm,
Delphi the Omphalos, the navel of the universe. And if you look at the Mediterranean and where Delphi is on the mainland of Greece, and when I say look at the Mediterranean, I'm thinking of the Mediterranean, the ancients included. So that's all the way through Anatolia, up into what we now think of as Iran and Iraq and beyond. Delphi was the exact center of that ancient world, including Malta, like that big, big loop that would be.
mhm.
And if you take Delphi as that epicenter and then you think of the way the energy ripples out, I think the whole region has healing for the whole world. It's almost the heart center of planet Earth in that way. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's like meditating but never going into the heart space. You have to go into the heart space at least some meditations to really get the most out of the practice of meditation. Um, I want to talk about this oracle chamber. I want to talk more about the Hypogeum because it is
Hmm.
such a singular space. So the word hypogeum, for those who are like, ooh, what is that? It actually is Greek. It's
It is.
hypogeia, and it means actually in modern Greek it means basement, but it means the underground. So
Mm.
that is what you're doing when you enter the hypogeum is you are climbing, I think technically 4 stories
Yeah, I think one of them
underground.
you can't get to, but yeah, I remember there is a quite a significant descent through different levels of the Hypogeum, which is just, I just find it fascinating how these ancient people carved this out with hand tools.
Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to talk about because so the way it was described to me by our guide, because when you visit the Hypogeum, for anybody who's like, I want to do this, you have to book, by the way, you have to book at least 90 days in advance, and
Hmm.
you're going to be part of a very small group because these these chambers have existed for, I think, over 4,000 years. I think that's the oldest part, I think, that we can't access is older, but the parts
Yeah.
we're in are about 4,000 years old. And our breath, the carbon dioxide we breathe out, damages them. So they only allow something like 40 people a day over an 8 hour period. And so it's like groups of 12. So even if you want to visit, uh, you will you'll be in a small group and you'll have sort of space to yourself to explore because of that, but they do keep you where you're at as you move through. So it's interesting that you're kind of stuck in a, like, it's not like an excavated site where you can just exist. Like, you're stuck in a bit of
No.
a modern world
Yeah.
experience. However, I have always had powerful spiritual experiences there because the space is so present. So
Mm.
the spirits there are still so present. So the three things that blow my mind about this hypogeum. One is that they estimate 27 generations to carve this thing out.
Yeah, it's crazy. By
And
hand.
by hand, yeah. And the way that our guide explained it was that they, quote, listened to the living rock. So Malta is limestone all the way through,
Hmm.
and there are no deposits of water on the island. Like, there's no rivers, there's no, like, which is crazy, like, to think about. I can't. So of course you'd be a fertility based existence because you'd have to be calling in the rain and
Yeah.
so, but they would listen to this living rock. And the way our guide explained it, she kind of put her head to the wall and she said that we think they used antlers or stone and they just hammered and chiseled and they listened for the veins of the rock to know where to go next. And Malta was bombed during World War II more than anywhere in the entire world. And this
Yeah.
place never caved in.
No.
They listened to the stone and it
Yeah.
created this impermeable, safe haven.
Yeah, it's great. A lot of the children and families hid in the Hypogeum during the war as well. Um, so yeah, it is an incredible place to go and visit the Hypogeum. And descending into that final kind of oracle room space. And I mean, we were a bit cheeky, kind of like held back a bit so we
Me
could
too. Every
use use our voices and hear the resonant. Because I mean, all three of I went with my podcast, Embracing Magic, and all three of us were doing little like singing, just like really quietly, but you can really hear it, and it's just a really magical experience to be able to hear your voice echoing in this ancient chamber. Um, yeah, it's
It felt like I did the same thing. I held back from my group, let everyone go. My husband was with me, so he kind of like stood at the edge so that I wouldn't feel, because I also never want to make people uncomfortable. So I just stood at the very back of this chamber because it's kind of like if you pictured like backing a rocket or like an airplane into something, it's that sort of shape, like a long tube thing. I don't know. It's not very high ceilings, and as you walk towards the far back, it's like you're in this round bubble. I don't know. And
yeah,
I was doing the same thing. I was intoning at different levels, and it started before I even started intoning. But as I'm gonna try it. I think Zoom might mute me, but I was starting low, like and then it's like it felt like when you're tuning a guitar string, and there was this energetic thread between my solar plexus and my heart, and it just kept climbing, like, and it was
mm,
this taut, like it was like all my, it was maybe Kundalini is a way to describe it. It was like all my energy was completely gathered and grounded and centered instantly by the presence of this place.
yeah. You can
It's
really feel
unreal.
it just resonating through you. It's just incredible, incredible feeling.
And
Definitely
then you're
very grounding.
surrounded by this red ochre. Could you talk to us about red ochre?
Yes, I love the red ochre. It's probably one of my favorite things that I learnt about. So they painted a lot of spirals all across the ceiling and the around the wall. Well, ceiling, but it's really is just like a round kind of like womb
Yeah, it's such a womb.
experience.
Yeah.
And there's all these red ochre spirals, which obviously the spiral is, um, represents the cycles of life, and spiritual cycles, cosmic energy portals, and they're all over the walls in this oracle room. And I remember on the guide thing saying that in the candlelight you can see all of these spirals dancing all over the walls, and I can just imagine them carrying the bodies down and doing the death rites through with all their hand lit torches, and just this amazing experience of all of this red ochre spirals dancing across the walls. But red ochre was actually really important to them because they sprinkled it onto the bodies before finally burying them, and it was said that the red ochre was to carry them into the afterlife. But yeah, this is what why my sleeping lady is painted with red ochre, which a lovely Maltese shaman called Felix, who actually makes the talismans for the temples. And you're wearing some of the
I'm wearing
earrings.
some. Yeah, I'll even take it off and put it up to the camera better. But uh and all of the materials he uses are either limestone from the earth or stones from the temples. So this one was from the Tarjan temples right across from the Hypogeum with the spiral, of course.
He also makes a lot of things with bones as well that he finds as well, which the ancient civilizations would have used too, and shells. But yeah, he's incredible at recreating these tools that they would have used in these times.
And I think that's what's empowering. It can be frustrating, but if we let it be, it can also be empowering, is that we have archaeology. We don't have written record, but we have so much archaeology proving what we can know. And it kind of is empowering to know, okay, well, we know they use these tools. We know this was a chamber for burial. This was a chamber for that. We can we can begin a practice that can connect us to those things, which is fascinating to me. And I think what blows my mind about Malta and their clear connection to the divine feminine, the goddess, fertility of the land, is each of the people that we have record of, like we have record of these statues, we have record of, different things they were doing. We know that they were never, like Malta has never been a place that was isolationist. It was never a place where there was a uniculture. There was always things coming from in and out and everywhere. And so that's why I see it as this like origins place, because I think a lot of people were coming to Malta, moving along, through on their way to Egypt, stopping by Malta, on their way to Italy or Sicily, stopping by Malta. And so Malta was kind of creating this unique culture out of a multiculture that was arriving, and they always made the best of it. Even as we look into the more modern history, Malta's been invaded and taken over countless times, but they've always retained a completely unique cultural presence.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of see that with the Maltese language as well. I mean, it's mostly Arabic, the language, but it also has bits of Italian, bits of English, mixed up in with it. But it's its own unique language. Um, but yeah, you can also see it in, there's a symbol that's on a lot of the fishing boats, the Lutzus, which is the Eye of
Yeah.
Osiris, which is Egyptian in origin. Um, there's all these little like hidden things everywhere in Malta, and I feel like I'm still discovering more and more every time I go there, and it blows my mind because it's such a small place. Um, but you can still find new things and new temples. There's a new temples that I'm discovering that I never knew were there. Um, it's wild, really.
Yeah, actually, that's what I do in Greece is I go to these unexcavated sites, these places that have been forgotten, or for one reason or another, maybe they were excavated 150 years ago, but then never revisited. Um, what's that like in Malta? Is there a considerable amount of things yet to be discovered, or have they all been mapped but not necessarily excavated?
So, I think most of them, I mean, there could be other ones that haven't been excavated yet or found. Um, but most of them are managed by Heritage Malta now. but there are a few temple sites that you can go to that aren't managed by Heritage Malta. And personally, I think they're the better places to go and do ritual because a lot of the bigger temples um, can get quite busy with, lots of tourists wanting to go and see them, which is fair enough. It's amazing to go and visit them. Um, but there are a few dotted around that you can visit. Like I went to Tal Ardi, which is it kind of feels like completely abandoned, which is quite sad actually because it's not being maintained like some of the other temples are. But we went there and did a little ritual together there, which was beautiful just to honor that space. There's one that I really want to go to in Gozo, which I haven't quite managed to get to because some of them are like really off the map. So you have to try and find a route to it and also try and avoid going on private land. So it's a little bit tricky. But that temple was for Tanit, the goddess Tanit. And it's
Mm.
right on the I think it's right on the edge of the island. So really overlooking the sea. And I really want to go to that one, but I haven't quite managed to get there yet. But yeah, there's so many different sites that are not managed by Heritage Malta that you can go to.
I didn't know we knew a goddess name for any goddesses in Malta. So,
Yeah, I think Astarte is definitely one of the goddesses that are is was venerated, and Tanit, there is a temple for Tanit on Gozo, which I only just found out about, to be honest.
yeah, because
Um,
Tanit should be, I just looked this up. Yeah, she is Phoenician, but Tanit
mhm.
must be synchronous with Anet, who is synchronous with Inanna through Astarte, Ishtar, Ashtaroth as well. They were all part of that like Canaanite, Phoenician, and into. So that's
Yeah,
very interesting because the Phoenicians are who brought the red ochre as well to Malta. They were the
yes,
ones, that's where it's from in the world, and they would bring it there. So these Phoenicians, man, that's a whole other conversation, but I'm
I know.
constantly like, I want to
Yeah,
talk to one.
there's so much to learn and research constantly. But I love it. I love learning about all of these sacred sites and the ancient civilizations. But yeah, we also went to an agape table.
Yes. Oh, thank you for bringing them up. Yes. Tell us what they are. Tell everybody what they are.
So, I mean, I might not be able to articulate it very well, but the agape table is something that's only, I'm pretty sure is unique to Malta, and it is where they used to. Again, we're talking a lot about dead people today, but it's where they used to do their essentially funeral rite for who whatever family member was passed over, and they would sit around this agape table and have a final meal, almost like I guess a dumb supper, but your ancestor would be present, and it's almost got like a funnel that comes down from the agape table where you would leave an offering, so you would pour wine down this shaft, which would go to your ancestor or your loved one that you were burying. There's a really famous one, I think, near Mostar, but there is another one that I got taken to, which again was completely abandoned. There was not a soul in sight,
Wow.
and we ended up singing around the table, and it was just really beautiful. I don't even know how it started. It was just very intuitive, and the three of us were just sat around this agape table, um, just intuitively singing with each other and raising the energy through our voices. And it was just, I mean, I'm getting kind of shivers talking about it now because it was just honestly the most beautiful experience that I've had there.
I love agape tables. I love the practice of them, the principle of them. And I think it's interesting how I think Malta's quite unique in this. So much time was spent in the subterranean. It wasn't because Malta's limestone, I imagine an actual burial like we think of in the West of digging right into the dirt and getting 6 feet under. I don't think that would really be possible because there's not soil in the traditional sense. You would hit that limestone, and so you would have to create these subterranean chambers for burial. But the Hypogeum is the big example of this, and these Agape tables, these more private, essentially like underground mausoleums, are another. But they would not only just go down, deposit bodies, come back up, they would spend time there.
Yeah,
And
with
I
the
I think
bodies.
that's fully unique, yeah. And
Mm.
and it sounds like routinely. So even after somebody had passed on, like you would still be memorializing them with
Yeah,
Agape suppers.
yeah. Um, it's interesting because obviously we do we do have dumb suppers here. You know, for Samhain we would celebrate by having a dumb supper, but you'd be in your own home. You wouldn't actually go to the location where your family are buried, and there'd be actually a table there. So yeah, it is interesting.
Do you know anything about why the temples were placed where they are
So
and their
actually,
orientation or anything?
yeah. So well, a lot of them that it said that they were situated around solar worship, but I I've written down her name. Hang on a minute. There's some new research regarding the temples, which is fascinating. That the temples were actually situated to face the star Sirius. And it was Lenny
Mm.
Redeek, I think is how you say her name. Apologies if that's incorrect, but it's her research, and so yeah, that the ancient civilizations, they knew a lot about the stars.
And
They knew.
Sirius was very important in Egypt because it would be
Mm,
their indication in the middle of July that the Nile would soon flood and their fertility period would begin for their farming. So it wouldn't surprise me if that wasn't related to why they were tracking Sirius. I was given this is 1 billion% personal gnosis, but when I was at I'm trying to remember the name of the temples. It's the two temples that are like walking distance from each other and they're
oh,
both on the water.
Hajar Im
Yes, that's
and
the one.
Man. I can't remember how it begins with an M.
Yeah, yeah, the long one that begins with an M that is right next to
Yeah.
if you put either in your GPS, they will take you to the same parking lot. Um, so I was doing that like kind of hike walk down along the water. I went to the temple and then I continued on my own to just kind of have some space to connect. And I was looking back at the temple complex and I had this like deep knowing that there were 13 temples on the island and they all would show a different full moon in its entirety because the temples seem to have no windows except for one. All of the ones we've been
Mm.
able to reconstruct, we, like I did it, but humankind has been able to reconstruct, there seems
Maybe in
to
a
be no
past life.
windows. Yeah, right. Maybe that was a bit of a Freudian slip by my higher self. But there was like one window. And so it's like, was that like maybe it was like some of the ancient Greek temples where nobody worshipped indoors of the temple and everything was kept there and then just the high priestesses were there? Or maybe it was dark on purpose to let in just the star or just the moon.
Well, I know that one of those temples, I can't remember which one it is, the window actually lines up with when there's a solstice and the sun shines the light on a particular stone. Um, I can't remember which one it was,
Ooh.
but yeah, but also I think it was the research by Lenny was saying that it seems as if a temple would be built to face the star, and then when it wasn't facing the star anymore, they would build another one that faced the star. Um,
Oh, that's
I
cool.
seem to remember her saying that. And then obviously finally they built the huge temple in Gozo, the Gigantia temple, which I don't know how they built that, but I mean they did. There are a lot of mythology around giants in Malta. Even there was a lady that visited the Hypogeum, and it said that she went down in further in, and then she saw all of these giants walking around in the Hypogeum. So there's a lot of tales on this like giant civilization, which is maybe an explanation as to why they were able to build these absolutely huge structures. But yeah, Gigantia is a really interesting. temple to go to, and a lot of artifacts were found there as well. And similarly, there is a another hypogeum located near that temple, which unfortunately you can't access anymore. But it's like a stone's throw away from the Gigantia temple.
Wow, I
Um,
didn't know that.
yeah,
That's
it's called the
amazing.
Shara Circle. It has caved in, so you can't access it anymore, sadly. Like I was saying, there is just like dotted around everywhere. There's so many sacred sites. Even in the village that my family are from, there is an ancient megalithic stone just in the middle of two houses.
Oh my gosh, the
Yeah.
dream.
I
I
know.
always,
If I lived there, I would be going down and connecting in with the energy
that's
every
my
day.
altar now. Yeah, I live
Yeah.
there. I still do have that hope. I where I live when I'm in the US is near the Susquehanna River, like 200 feet from the Susquehanna River, and there's these huge river stones, and I just keep hoping somehow one can just like be in my yard.
Yeah. One day you'll figure out
Yeah.
a way.
That's where I'm always like, when I think practically of moving just that one big stone that's only 200 feet away to right here, I don't know. I do. I always think back, like, how did they build any of this? How could they have
Yeah.
figured any of this out? And that goes for all the ancient civilizations. I have one more
Yeah.
historical site to ask you about if you've been. Have you been to Gar Dalam Cave?
I don't think I have actually, no.
I haven't
I
either
haven't.
yet because it's so far and I haven't. I drive in crazy places. I drive in the Middle East, no problem. I drive in Egypt, no problem. But because Malta's on the other side of the road and they drive a little bit like the Middle East, I am afraid to drive. So I haven't rented a car
Yeah,
to
sorry
go to some of
about that.
those. It's okay. I say the same thing to people when they visit Greece. I'm like,
Yeah.
just don't
Just,
try to drive in Athens.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just yeah, keep yourself to yourself.
Yeah.
Um, no, I haven't been. I have been to a cave. I got taken to a cave in Honey Valley. I don't know if you've heard of that location. It's
No,
this
please tell us more.
amazing valley in Malta. I think it's near Mosta. And we got taken on a bit of a pilgrimage without realizing we were going to be taken on one. Um, but it's an absolutely beautiful walk, and at the end there's actually a chapel in the like because the because it's like like a proper valley, and the sides of it are huge. There is a chapel just in the wall, basically. Um, at the end of this walk, and it's just like again just like Malta with all of the surprises. But at the end we went to this cave that is a sacred place to the Maltese shaman I was talking about. Again, we did a ritual there with him, which was really special, and we used limestone to cleanse our
Mm.
energy, and one of the offerings that we would use in folk magic, particularly in Malta, is burning a olive branch, and so I burnt an olive branch for one of my ancestors as an offering. So yeah, I haven't been to that cave, but I've been to other caves.
Wow, that is so powerful. Oh, that's interesting about the olive groves because we in Greece obviously have a lot of olive trees. And when they have to trim them up, which you have to trim them up, interestingly, for those who don't know, olives will not produce olives on the same branch 2 years in a row. So you have to understand how to essentially ask the tree
Yeah,
what branch should be trimmed so the other ones can grow these olives. So it's this it has to be intuitive. My parents Kubara, which is Greek for like chosen family, I guess, but it's like when you get married, you pick a couple that's going to be your godparents as a couple, basically. So, but they're like lifelong family, and so our Kubara, our one of our family friends like that, he's from a part of Albania that was part of Greece until World War II ended, and all these white guys at their conferences misdrew the maps. So he's Greek, but he's from this really small Arvanitic village in now modern Albania that have a lot of spirit practices that I would call folk magic, but that he
Yeah.
would just call how we do things.
Yeah.
And so he has
Totally
this
get that.
listening to the tree thing that he does. And when my dad bought the house he lives in now, he had this ring of very old, abandoned for over 40 years, olive trees. And Vasily, our friend, he was able to talk to each of them, and they all produce olives now. But when we trim all the branches, traditionally what you do is, and this is like if you are in the right time of year for this, it's usually around May Day, which I
Hmm.
do my retreats around that time of year so people get this experience. They take all the branches they cut and they gather them in circles, in rings, and they burn off. It's very similar to Beltane fires in Celtic cultures or in English culture. It's the idea of being able to burn off what needs to be removed so that you can invite the new life, and then they take those ashes and then they spread them at the roots of the of at the base of the olive trees. So that's beautiful to burn them as a remembrance in a for a personal way as well, because it's a beautiful land-based practice, and you'll be in Greece and you'll see these valleys just
Yeah.
intermittently little smoke coming up, and you know there's a
Yeah.
shepherd there tending that flame.
Yeah, that's beautiful, by the way. I love that he does that.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
I
amazing
mean,
to watch.
I always connect in with any uh, plant that I am going to be taking fruit from, to see if if I have permission to do it. Actually, one time I did it with rose hips, and the tree attacked me. So I took that as a sign that it was a no. And I was like, okay, that's fine.
Well, I learned very recently, literally like Friday, I was doing research for the next book I'm writing, and I learned that in Native American culture, the first is for the natives. So whenever
Hmm.
they're foraging, the first of anything is uh, leave it for the land. That's how they
Yeah.
see it. Is leave it for the animals, leave it for the critters. And when I was in Crete back in June, I had the same experience. There was this oak tree, and I actually just wanted I didn't want to take an acorn from the tree, but I wanted a leaf from the tree and then like an acorn from the ground. And we came up to this like little grove of these oak trees. And for those who don't know, Greece has only three kinds of oak trees, and they're all really different from each other. So there's this one kind that only really grows there in Crete and a few other places in the world in Greece. So I was there and I saw this oak tree and I was like, and I was like so excited that I tapped into oak, but I really didn't like ask, like I should have asked. And as I like went to pick a leaf off of the tree, I felt like a branch break and I was like, oh, and I moved and it would have fallen right on me. It was the sassiest. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So we kept walking and then I found another tree and it was very welcoming. And then I learned that about Native American belief and I was like, that makes a lot of
Mm,
sense. Just
that's
leave
so
the first of
interesting.
anything for the
Yeah,
land.
yeah. Um, it's amazing. I mean, I've been reading your book actually, Sacred Wild, and I absolutely
Oh,
love it. And it's amazing when you start really connecting to the spirits of the land, how much they talk to you.
yeah. And and guide you and don't
Yeah.
guide you and tell you
Yeah.
don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can definitely you have that same experience obviously in Malta as well with asking permission from the olive trees um, and to cross thresholds as well. Like whenever I go into a temple in Malta, I always ask permission to cross the threshold before going in. If I get a really horrible feeling, I'll be like, okay. But
Guess I'll
I've
be
never had
back.
that.
I get not
Yeah.
yet sometimes. I haven't had it
Yeah.
somewhere in Malta, but I get not yet a lot. I have an episode on
Yeah.
this podcast for those listening. If you're ever like, how do I know if land spirits are saying no and why would they be saying no? I did a whole episode on why they might, because they do sometimes, and it's often
Mhm.
not yet. I had that with
Yeah.
Glastonbury 3 times.
Really?
2 times I was at the exact turnoff. Like if anyone's been to Glastonbury where there's that like wooden stake and the thing and it was like,
Mm.
not now. I was like, I'm
Oh.
here. I got all the way here. We rented a car. And then so the one time we went to Avebury instead, and that was where I was supposed to go, and that was absolutely a fantastic
Mm.
consolation. And then the other time we went to Salisbury. So it's very strange. Sometimes land calls you right to the doorstep, but you're not supposed to step that threshold yet. And other
Yeah.
times you just need to real quick do a cleanse before you try again in a few minutes. But
Yeah, crazy, really.
Steph, thank you so much for being here. Can you tell everybody if you have anything coming up this spring or this year that you want to share and where to find you and learn more?
Well, I have a online coven called the Lunar and Wild Coven, and we have online ceremonies and lots of different workshops, and it's all online, so it welcomes everyone from all walks of the world. And yeah, yeah. If anyone's interested in joining, I'd love to see you there.
Yeah, check it out at lunarandwild.com. Steph, thanks again for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing to talk all things Malta because it is my favourite place in the world. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for seeking Numina with me today. Join me at patreon.com/Elise Wells to support this show and get access to a library of rituals, exclusive videos, meditations, and more. To learn more about my upcoming retreats, book a tarot reading, or learn with me in workshops, classes, or mentorship, visit seekingnumina.com.